All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, another NBA playoff video. In this video, we're going to recap all the games from this weekend, a little bit of game sixes, a little bit of the elimination of the Rockets to the Lakers, and of course, the game sevens that happened, and a couple other big news pieces and some stuff that's going on in the NBA. So if you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have any opinions, comment it down below. And if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. Yeah, it's been a very busy Monday morning for me. There's a lot of WNBA stuff going on. There's NBA stuff obviously happening. I'm excited. This is the best time of year for me. Basketball all the way around, NBA playoff basketball, WNBA opening weekend this weekend. Lots of stuff. I do want to make it very clear. I tried to record this video before the game sevens happened. I tried to record it at night. I felt like a late night host. It didn't come out well, and I said, you know what? Let's just wait. Let's have all the teams eliminated so we can recap basically all of round one, and we can fully move into round two tomorrow or Wednesday, um, and see what happens there. Um, the other news that I want to get right off the chest, and we're gonna bounce all over the place, so I apologize. Um, I will try to make things clear when I found out the news or when it happened. The big news that happened this Monday morning is that the Dallas Mavericks, yes, those Dallas Mavericks that have been eliminated from playoff contention for a long time, probably forgot about them, right? Yeah, I definitely forgot about them. The breaking news this morning from ESPN's Shams Charania: the Dallas Mavericks are hiring Masai Ujiri as the franchise's new team president and alternate governor. Oh, I didn't realize that was his title. Alternate governor. Sources tell me, and uh, Mac McManaman, Ujiri ran the Toronto Raptors from 2013 to 2025, serving as the architect of the 2019 NBA championship team. Um, so why do I want to talk about this? Well, I think it's very interesting. One, because the draft lottery is coming up at the end of this week. So there's that. The Dallas Mavericks have a pick. It could jump up like it did last year. And who is the perfect person to right this ship for the Dallas Mavericks in Masai Ujiri? I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want to say I think it's very interesting that Masai's taken this job and he's like alternate governor. I don't think I've ever seen that title in NBA basketball. Like basically he's an alternate owner, which means he has the title, I'm going to presume, has a lot of weight to it because he's not just like GM, president of basketball operations. He's alternate governor, which means he has some stake in the team now. I don't know when that happened. It seems like the Adelsons, admins, I don't know what their name is. The family that bought the Mavericks is sort of trying to step away from the limelight of this team and the mistakes that were made and the stuff that has happened over the last 2 years and try to make Masai Ujiri the face. And he's a great face. He's a great face of African basketball. He's a champion of that space in basketball. Trying to get African players the resources that they need to make the jump to the NBA or make the jump to college even and come over to the States and do all that stuff. So Masai Ujiri is a very nice person, a very uh, th- how do you say it? Charitable, yeah, philanthropic. He's very nice. Um, my thought, my me bringing this up is I'm interested to see what he's going to do with this team because GMs often like to come in and have their own team. And by have their own team, I mean if he didn't pick you in the draft or you weren't a part of his plan initially, you might be on the trade block. And that same goes for the coach. And it's been floated around that Jason Kidd doesn't want to be the coach anymore. He'd rather be in a front office role or like a managerial role. So we'll see if this is the first domino fall this offseason, and maybe Jason Kidd is not the coach next season. Maybe they bring in somebody completely new. Um, we'll see there. But there's also a mind space that you could get into where like players like Derek Lively aren't safe. Players like Najee Marshall aren't safe. Players like Max Christie aren't safe. Players like even Kyrie Irving aren't safe. There's a bunch of dominoes that could fall in the next couple months leading up to the finals, because anything could happen leading up to then, and then obviously you have a little bit of a break, and then you get into the full free agency period with all the players that are free agents. And Masai Ujiri has a lot of connections. He did a lot of right in Toronto, and then sort of towards the end, it didn't go right. He got a little sentimental about his players and the ones he wanted to keep and the ones he drafted. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm very intrigued with to see where the Mavericks are going because there's a lot to write. And the only player that's safe in my mind, especially with Masai Ujiri, who probably wants to make sweeping moves across the board, just not just with the players but in the organization as a whole, is Cooper Flag, the last year's number one pick. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens on, I believe it's Friday, Friday or Saturday that the draft lottery is. Probably Friday. Um, so yeah, we'll see what happens there. But I thought that was huge news that we needed to talk about. Now let's switch gears back. Let's take a time machine back to these playoff games that I want to talk about, and I think we will. Let's do it this way. Actually, let's talk about Lakers versus Rockets. Let's talk about 76ers versus Celtics, and then we will talk about the Game Sevens, Pistons, Magic, and Cavaliers Raptors. But we will also talk about the Game Six previous to that Game Seven. So let's talk about the Lakers versus the Rockets. The I guess how would you call this? The premeditated elimination of the Rockets that we've been talking about for like a week now. And I already gave my thoughts about the Rockets and that they shouldn't overreact to this season and they should keep their young guys and let them mature and let them do that. So I won't be talking about them and their future because I already did that like a week ago when we thought they were going to get eliminated and then they got eliminated on Friday. Um, what happened in this game was the Lakers said enough is enough. But in the process of that, and even Austin Reeves playing his second game back, there were some problems. The Lakers will move on. They won this game. They won the game 98 to the Rockets 78. They win the series 4-2 in Houston, and they move on to play to play the Thunder. And what I saw in this game was LeBron still looking really old. No offense. Did not look like he could carry a team, even though there were spurts at the end of the fourth quarter where he still looked really good, or the end, whatever was the most impactful quarter, because by the fourth quarter the game was over basically. So like the third quarter he looked good. The biggest glaring problem for me and what's gonna plague the Lakers from even maybe not even winning a game in this next series against the Thunder is Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves could barely play in this series. When the Rockets barely had a guard to throw at them, to throw at the Lakers. There was a lot of Ahmed Thompson, Reed Shepard, and those guys aren't truly elite guards. The Thunder have a stable of elite guards, starting with the reigning MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who they're gonna try to get Austin Reeves on every time, and Shai is going to eat Austin Reeves up, and I'm gonna be very interested to see how JJ Redick uh, sort of maybe tries to hide Austin Reeves in that series, um, but that's for another day. Well, let's continue with this game. The Austin Reeves on defense was he literally got abused this whole game, and this was his second game back. So I can't even imagine this whole Lakers Rockets series if Austin Reeves had played every game. How the offensive upside of Austin Reeves was very high, and you needed the points that he gave you this game. But man, the defense was it was ugly. It was ugly, and it was not good. It was not good for Austin Reeves. Um, Through this game, both teams looked gassed. Both teams, I don't want to say both teams looked mentally checked out because I don't think that either of them really checked out of these games because they know what happened last time when they were in Houston and the Lakers know how to win in Houston. So they didn't look too mentally fatigued, but just physically, they just looked tired. Everybody looked tired. Obviously, Austin Reeves coming off the injury. LeBron, 41 years old, tired, obviously, carrying the load a lot this series, this first round series. Um, the only people who didn't look gassed is probably like Ahmed Thompson and Jabari Smith. Alperen Şengün for the Rockets looked gassed. Reed Shepard at times looked gassed. It was just a this became a game of attrition. Is it attrition when you're trying to face off tiredness? It's like attrition, yeah. And the Lakers came out on top. Rui was great this game and all series. Um, to compound the LeBron tiredness, Jabari Smith Jr., bottom left of your screen, blocked LeBron on a crazy, crazy block that is like reminiscent of like the LeBron block on Andre Iguodala, which is nuts to say. Um, and yeah, let's see what else we got here. Austin Reeves, obviously the cherry on top to close out this series, and what is it? What is it here? 6 games. Don't have to go to game 7. They probably would have gone to a game 7 without Austin Reeves. So shout out Austin Reeves. And my last note here about this game was the game was sealed before the fourth quarter. Lakers tired but had enough to get by. And they move on to play the Thunder. That first game will be May 5th. That's tomorrow. So yeah, Lakers get another extra day of rest. And then they head to Oklahoma to play the reigning champs, fully healthy. Sans, no J Dub for them, and no update on Luca for the Lakers. Luca's not. I don't think Luca's coming back unless they make it to the finals, which at this point is highly improbable. So we will see if we get a postseason Luca appearance at all. Um, and now we move on to the uh, the other game here, the 76ers versus the Boston Celtics. And man, do I have notes and do I have thoughts about this game? um, do you want to guess what the starting lineup for the Boston Celtics was? No Jason Tatum this game, obviously. But the starting lineup for this team was Derek White, Ron Harper Jr., Jalen Brown, Baylor Shireman, Luca Garza. No, this isn't like a mistake on the website. I watched this game. Hundreds of millions thousands of people watched this game live. A bunch of people in Boston Garden and TD Garden watched this game. And when Coach Joe Mazzulla rolled out this starting lineup, my note says, "What the f is this lineup?" And I kept saying that when I saw it. And I'm gonna skip through my notes here a little bit, but my thought process through this whole game, when I was trying to think why Joe Mazzulla would do this, why would he start this lineup? Because a lot of these guys, I said this in my video when we talked about, I think it was game 5 or game 6. I think it was game 6, right? Yeah, game 6. I like a lot of these guys off the bench. I like a lot of them, as like spark plug, all around really good players to like plug in with Jalen Brown at the end of a fourth quarter or the end of a third quarter, and give the Celtics some juice, give them some energy. And I was baffled that Coach Joe Mazzulla started this lineup. And we'll skip to the end of the game because I can just tell you right now they lost. The Celtics lost this game 100 to the Philadelphia 76ers 109. The final score is a lot closer than the actual game was. The 76ers ran circles around this Boston Celtics team for a majority of it. Um, and I watched the post game interview of Coach Joe Mazzulla, the exit interview essentially, for the Boston Celtics season. And Joe Mazzulla said, let's see if I can find it here. Um, he was just testing stuff out with the new lineup. You know what I love to do in game 7, when it's win or go home? I just like to test stuff out. Just test it out. See what I got, right? Like I didn't have 6 games previous to try to figure out what I got in my team, or a whole season to figure out what I got in this team. This was I don't want to overreact to this. This made me actually dislike Joe Mazzulla because I actually have a lot of respect for Joe Mazzulla. I think he was put in a very awkward situation when he first got the job, and he made the very best out of that situation, and he's turned into a very good coach. But man, what the hell? What the hell was this? What was this? 3 people in the starting lineup scored 0 points. One person in the starting lineup, Ron Harper Jr., played 4 minutes. Not even like starter level minutes. Just went out there and played 4 minutes. Luca Garza played 9 minutes. Joel Embiid abused any center they threw at him, but especially Luca Garza, who just looked lost at there at times. Um, a lot of these guys, this was their first game 7, obviously, and their first playoff start. What was the deal with that? I don't know. Um, the Sixers dice this Boston Celtics team up with their cutting, with their movement off ball. Joel dishing the ball, Maxi dishing the ball, um, VG Edgecombe getting into the paint, dishing it back out, doing the rinse and repeat cycle was amazing. Um, and I said in my notes here, the Celtics set up to fail this game. And I still believe that I don't want to say they purposely lost this game. I think they knew that Jason Tatum wasn't going to come back because he had the calf injury, and they're not going to put him out there again on another calf injury and risk him tearing his other Achilles. So I think the thought process was Joe Mazzulla was trying to learn at least a little bit something from these guys that he has on this roster and who to keep and who not to keep going into the offseason, obviously. And then the, the, uh, they wanted to see if they could get these guys to play. And by them, I mean like their own guys, like Luka Garza, Derek White. Derek White has a really good game, 26 points. Ron Harper Jr., and then you kind of switch the lineup and you bring some other guys off the bench that normally start. Nemezi Keita, 17 points, 12 rebounds. Very good game. In foul trouble constantly his whole game. It was awful. I feel like if Nemezi Keita could have kept his hands to himself and stayed out of foul trouble, the Celtics actually could have won this game. And that's crazy to say that Keita is like your winner go home defining player, but stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened in the playoffs. Peyton Pritchard, 13 points, 2 of 7 from 3. Sam Hauser, 11 points, 3 of 6 from 3. Nothing to write home about. Um, let me get through some of my more notes here. um, although this was a clinic by the 76ers, the Celtics would refuse to go away. The Sixers stalled. Um, a little bit in the second quarter, had a little bit of a collapse in the second quarter, even. And then you had the arrival of the third quarter, the second half in total. And PG had a very good game. It was his birthday this game. Happy belated birthday, Paul George. Um, Joel Embiid looked as spry as physically possible. I mean, what more can you ask from a guy who's playing on one leg, doesn't have an abdomen anymore, is so jacked up at this point. And then also with the beginning of that third quarter in the second half, Joe Mazzulla went back to his regular starting lineup, which consisted of Nemezi Keita, Sam Hauser, Pam Pritchard, and the rest of the guys. Derek White, Jaylen Brown. And it did help a little bit. It halted the bleeding for a little bit, but um, the Sixers had this team number already. VJ became so important when Joel started. He had some tightness on the right side of his body, Joel Embiid did. And then in those moments when Joel Embiid was out, VJ Edgecombe really heated up. He ended the game with 23. So I said this in my other video when I was talking about this series. I said VJ is so important to this team as a playoff riser, and if he's a playoff riser already as a rookie, I can't imagine what he's going to be in year 4, year 5 when he has his bag, when he has his moves, when he has that pro body. VJ Edgecomb's going to be a problem, and the Sixers are so lucky to have him. Celtics ran some zone in this game. It helped a little bit. Again, there was just momentary stoppage of the bleeding for the Celtics. There was never like a full stoppage, where they just couldn't stop. They couldn't stop the hemorrhaging that they had inflicted on themselves at this point. Um, Jaylen Brown got hurt at some point during this game, but he obviously wasn't going to sit on the bench until he had to, and he kept fighting. Joel went down, and I said this again in another video. I feel like Joel Embiid goes down 5 times a game, and he grabs his knee or he grabs his back, his ankle, and he makes like this face like he wants to cry, and then he like holds it in. He puts his hands up for his teammates to pick him up. He gets right back up and he limps down the floor, and I gotta give him a lot of credit for that. He's a fighter. Um, where are we here? But this one was really bad because like Maxi fell on his leg. It didn't look good. Um, Celtics just started shooting threes. Just started shooting threes. Just we're like, well, we're down. We just start shooting threes, and they kept shooting, and it did not go in. Um, and I said in my notes here, this is downright awful basketball for the Celtics. When it's an ugly game for them, it's very ugly, and that's pretty much sums up their end of this game and the end of their season, where this version of Celtics basketball was disgusting, and especially with the players that Joe Mazzulla had, made it even more disgusting. Um, and then my last note is Sixers win, and they did indeed win this game. Now, I didn't really think about this either. I said this about the Nuggets. I didn't really think they'd be eliminated this early, so I didn't have anything planned to talk about them in any capacity for the offseason already. But for the Celtics, and I have to keep in mind for the Celtics that they're trying to win now. So my whole spiel that I could go on basically sums up to they're gonna go back to being a championship contending team. They're gonna try to rebuild what they had in the previous years when they won the championship. Get a good guard, a good defensive guard to add with Derek Way. Get an actual serviceable center who you like. Even though Nemezi Keita played his heart out this season, really blew up within the Celtics locker room and within the Celtics fandom. People liked him before, but they especially like him even more now this season because he can actually play basketball now. Um, I think they do add somebody else though. They Nikola Vucevic, their main guy they got in the midseason, didn't play this game. Not 1 minute, not 1 second. Didn't even check in, not once. So I do not think he will be returning. So they're going to try to get somebody else. And you just hope Jason Tatum with a full off season, an early off season, probably one of his earliest, um, in a long while, gets some rest, gets some recovery, gets back to being himself a little bit more. He had some NBA minutes under his belt this season, which I think, in hindsight, mixed bag. He obviously sort of re-injured himself a little bit with the calf thing. We'll see what happens there. The other thing I do want to note about this game, and I will tell you guys the 76ers stats as well while we're here. Paul George, 13 points, um, 3 turnovers, no blocks, no steals. Joel Embiid, 34 points, 9 of 11, 12 rebounds. Kelly Oubre, 6 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Tyrese Maxey, 30 points, 11 rebounds. VJ Edgecombe, 23 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers. And then the bench didn't really give him a lot. It was just the starters for the Sixers, so there's that. The other thing I want to note about this game, and I'm happy I actually waited to make this video. Um, Jaylen Brown, Celtics star that we talked about this whole series, this whole video, this whole segment of the video as well, went on Twitch.tv on his live stream channel and made some very disparaging comments about Joel Embiid and said, Joel Embiid's a flopper. And he also said, this is my favorite season of my career. And Jaylen Brown I've said this before about Jaylen Brown. I've sort of eased off of it a little bit because he did have a really good season, and I didn't want my opinion of him to overshadow what he was doing this season. Jaylen Brown's a smartass. In no in layman's terms, he is a smartass. He thinks he's smarter than everybody else. He thinks he's whatever better than everybody else. Which when you're an athlete, you sort of have to have that ego. But Jaylen Brown takes it to another level where he actually thinks like he's the smartest guy in the room at every point at all times. And if I was his teammate, that would drive me insane because I'd be like, dude, just shut up, please. I don't care. We're playing basketball. Like, go out there and hoop, right? And he didn't hoop. He hasn't hooped the last 2 games. I won't say he was awful, but he was trying to play hero ball, and he was trying to win this game, and it looked bad. It just wasn't good. And he has this move now where he like sort of like pushes off guys. It's like the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander move where he sort of like arm bars a guy and like pushes like slightly pushes him, but NBA players will like exaggerate the contact and like fall backwards, so it looks like Jaylen Brown is actually pushing them, but he isn't. And at other points, sometimes he has pushed guys. Um, and I don't know why I just said that, but I did. Um, Jaylen Brown is in a very precarious place, and I said this when Jason Tatum came back a couple months ago. I said it's gonna be very awkward at times whenever next year is, and now next year starts now for the Celtics. Um, but because Jaylen Brown has had the time to be Batman when he was always Robin. Even though he had the Batman accolades, Finals MVP, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, he was always Robin, right? To Jason Tatum's Batman, because Jason Tatum was the better player. But now Jaylen Brown has gotten the chance to be Batman, but none of the Batman accolades, right? And now it's this weird paradox where if Jason Tatum doesn't get near where he was previous to his Achilles injury, Jaylen Brown is going to take that to his advantage and try to be the guy. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't know if Jaylen Brown's the guy. He obviously showed he could lead a team through the regular season, which is admirable and a quality you want in your second star. Because that's why you have a second star. When your first star's out, you have the second one, and they do everything that the regular star would do, and then maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on their skill set. But Jaylen Brown has had so much experience as a one and as a two, as a one, like a number one player, number two player. Who wants to go back to being a number two? I don't. And then maybe in the sacrifice of winning, he would be relegated to a number two again, and he would be fine with that. But this guy has such an ego, and and I forgot how insufferable he is because he had a really good season this season, and he's just you don't hop on your live stream less than 24 hours after you've been eliminated in a game 7 and start complaining about why you didn't win and start saying I love this season for me. This season was great. It's not good optically. It's not good. It's not and this is a way overreaction. If I'm the Celtics, I'm like, I and this is the thing about Jaylen. He's a smartass. You can't tell him anything. If the Celtics even dared to tell him, "Don't live stream, shut up," he would make it a whole big deal. So they just kind of have to let him do it and hope he doesn't dig himself too deep of a grave. And again, as somebody who just sits on here and just talks about basketball and doesn't know these guys personally, or I'm not in the locker room. Jaylen Brown may be a wonderful guy in the locker room, and teammates may love him, and they have no complaints about him. And it's just us who get the worst version of him, which is highly possible. I would still be sort of wary of where Jaylen Brown is going to be next season in the sense of in the pecking order of the Celtics. Because if I'm the Celtics, I want Jason Tatum to take the reins back. Jason Tatum, for all the bad that he or everything that he lacks in not having the accolades of Finals MVP, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, Jason Tatum's the better player. But now that Jaylen has had this season, the gap has closed so much more, and Jason's gap has gone down so much less because the injury. And you can blame the injury a little bit, but you can't weigh on that too heavy, and it becomes a very awkward situation. And next year is going to be very interesting for the Celtics. And if I'm a Celtics fan, as of this moment, before any trades or any like free agents come, I'm very worried about what's going to happen next season. And I'm kind of worried about Joe Mazzulla as well. But that's for a whole nother video. That's for a whole nother time. Let's move on here to the penultimate game, the second to last games of the 7 game, of what would become a 7 game series. So both of these series is Pistons versus Magic and Raptors versus um, Cavaliers. I will breeze through these game sixes for you guys because it's very old news at this point. So let's start with the game that was early on both days. That was Detroit versus Orlando. I will say this series, both these series, in fact, but mostly this one. I would rewatch this one in full. This Detroit versus Orlando series, it was a hardwood classic. This is a classic NBA series. A team blowing a 3-1 lead. You don't get a lot, but here we are. And of two very young teams, two teams with a lot to prove, especially through the course of this series. And yeah, let's just hop in. So this is game 6. I repeat, this is game 6 for Pistons versus Magic. My first note here is that it was very loud in Orlando, strikingly loud. Um, the first half of this game, back and forth threes. They were dueling beyond the arc. Sorry, I had to go. Here we go. The Magic built a sizable lead, and I said big hill for the Pistons to climb starting in the second half. And this would become a theme throughout game 6 and game 7. This is why I wanted to talk about these together. Paolo Banchero getting denied at the rim frequently. This became a very big factor that Paulo could no longer, or very sparingly, get to the get to the paint, and he would have to rely on his jump shot, and he would live and die by his jump shot. And in this game in particular, versus the Detroit Pistons, Game Six, they it didn't go well for Paulo. It didn't go very well for him. He did okay. I mean, 17 points, like 4 of 20. Okay, actually, that's really bad. That's really bad. I kind of overblew it. Yeah, 4 for 20. Not great for Paulo, but what are you gonna do? Both these guys, though, Cade and Paulo, both superstars for each other, each team, each individual team, were in the teens heading into the fourth quarter for their team. And we'll see. I said, let's see who can heat up. Um, Wendell Carter, also halfway decent. In impact, not so much in the numbers, but in impact, in impact. Um, and this would become a theme throughout Game 6 and Game 7 for Cade. He was trying to do it all. And in this game in particular, Game 6, he did do it all. And he got what he needed. He got this game to get to a Game 7. He scored 32 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and it worked for him. Uh, Cade had an amazing fourth quarter. Pistons, amazing defense in the fourth quarter as well. And then the Magic fans were not happy. I don't know if they weren't happy with the Pistons, obviously, or they weren't happy with their team. Um, they were boos. They were audible boos that could be heard from the crowd in Orlando as they lost this game. And the Magic led by 20 at one point in this game, and the Magic sort of reverted back to what they had been for most of the regular season, which was a below average team. And the Pistons took advantage of that and forced a game seven. Um, this has been a hard couple games for the Magic because there's no Franz. It's only Paulo and Desmond Bain and Jalen Suggs. There needs to be a dialogue about Jalen Suggs. We're going to start a dialogue. We're going to start a conversation about Jalen Suggs because Jalen Suggs, as much of a defender as he is, he's awful on offense. He reminds me a lot of Tony Allen. If you remember Tony Allen from the Grit and Grind Grizzlies, um, all-time great defender, really, really amazing defender, awful on offense. Awful. Jalen Suggs in his career has had a couple like breakout games where it's like, oh, he's finally connecting the dots. He's got the offense now, and then he shits the bed in the playoffs. Um, that's pertinent to this conversation. I will save that for later. Moving on though, this game six horrendous for the Magic. Pistons took advantage of it, and then we move on to game seven. Um, this was this was the better game seven last night. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys the Pistons won this game 93 to the Orlando Magic 79. But then we moved to game seven where the Detroit Pistons once again won the game 116 to the Orlando Magic's 94. And you'd be surprised who was the man of this game. Cade did indeed have a really good game, probably one of his better games, percentage wise and shooting splits wise. But let me get my notes up for this game because I kind of okay, here we go. This was not the Cade Cunningham game for the Pistons. This was the Tobias Harris game. Yeah, that Tobias Harris, the one who looks like J. Cole. That one. I've talked a lot of smack about Tobias Harris, and not so much on this channel because his contract is sort of was relevant to that conversation of why I talked so much shit about him in the past because he was not worth the contract he was on at one point. Now he's on a more like digestible contract, and when you get games like this, it's like, well, he outplayed his contract in this game. 30 points for Tobias Harris, 9 rebounds, 5 of 7 from three, 11 of 18 from field goal. Yeah, so let's rewind a little bit. Um, when talking about this game for the Magic, it starts with Paulo once again, but this time Paulo getting denied through him, and this time, I said this time twice, I'm so sorry. Although his mid range shot was falling, and he ends the game with 38 points, 14 to 25, emptied the clip for this game, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 turnovers, not great. Um, and this game became, as it dragged on, where's everybody else for this Magic team? Where's everybody else? Desmond Bain, 16 points. Jalen Suggs, 6 points. Um, the return of Mo Wagner, 5 points, 2 rebounds. Brought a lot of energy, not much else. Anthony Black, 11 points, 4 of 12 from field goal. Sure. Um, it became very apparent that this would have to be the Paulo game if they were to win. And like I said, they didn't win. And the first half of this basketball game was a masterclass from both these teams, and more particularly both their star players, Paulo and Cade. I would love to see this matchup 10 more times, and it would still be as entertaining as it was the first time. Um, Paulo played a very smooth game this game. He looked comfortable out there for what it was worth. He looked comfortable. I can't be mad at Paulo. I mean, you hope he knocks down. I mean, he made 4 of 7 from three too. Like you can't ask more from this guy. He just needed more help. And I hate to say that because like this team is a little injured. You are asking maybe like Desmond Bain to do a little too much, but like Desmond Bain was your offseason acquisition, and you traded a bunch for him, and not to show up in a game 7 is kind of crippling altogether. Um, and the Pistons opened it up in the second half. And it just wasn't close after that. It just wasn't close. It was devastating for the Orlando Magic, to be quite honest. I have a note here that says Cade. That's it. That's the note. Just Cade Cunningham. That's it. um, Jalen Duren, for what it was worth in this game in this series, it was rough for Jalen Duren. It was rough. And he finally had an impactful game. And I wasn't sure the numbers would stack up to that, but the numbers look great. 15 and 15, 15 points, 15 rebounds, 5 of 9 from field goal. Um, what was this? One block. It was enough for Jalen Duren to look halfway decent for once. And I say in my notes here, well, the Orlando Magic blew it to Tobias Harris and Cade. Uh, Paolo Banchero tried. The rest of the team was bad on offense, and that's what it really came down to. And it, it, it I I will say, now we're talking about the future for the Orlando Magic. I will say I came into the season very high on them. I thought they could make the Eastern Conference Finals. I thought on paper, really good team. I thought Paulo and Franz were going to take a step. I guess in the end, they sort of both did. Um, uh, I am stumbling over my words because I don't know what to say about this team. Because there were moments when they were up 3-1 where it looked like, and I said this, I came on this channel and said, this is the team I thought they were going to be for 82 games, or at least maybe 60 of these games. And they weren't, and they were bad the whole regular season. And then finally, when they got to the play in, not the playoffs, the play in to get into the playoffs, they started playing really good basketball, especially after that first game that they lost. They started playing really good basketball. And they took that momentum into this playoff series against the Pistons, the number 1 seed, when they were the 8th seed, and they went up 3-1, and I was like, this is it. And not that I'm a Magic fan, but I was like, I just want this team to be good because I thought they were going to be good. I want to be right. When I tell you guys something, I like to be right. And then they blew it and blew a 3-1 lead. And subsequently, the questions start being asked, and Paulo was asked in his like exit interview of this game. Reporter asked him, he said, "Do you think this team has the pieces to make the finals or even the Eastern Conference Finals?" And Paulo plainly said, we've been in the same spot for 3 years and we've lost in the first round 3 years. I'd like to say yes, but the results say no. And I think that's very truthful of Paulo. Paulo is becoming a very polarizing player. I have his jersey. It's in my closet. I didn't take it out all season. I, I, I I was embarrassed to have it in my room just hanging. I was like, I don't want to look at this jersey. um, and I thought maybe he would take a step. And again, in the end, I guess, 4 of 7 from three in a closing game is a step in the right direction, but I would like you to do that for a whole season. It's nice, it's novelty to do it in a game 7. I need to do it for a whole season. I need Franz to be healthy. Franz was not healthy this whole season. Once they played that game in Germany, um, where they played the Raptors. I think the Magic did. I think it was something like that. They just Franz was never healthy after that. He was never healthy. He got injured in this series, and it was said before this series, when everybody thought they would get swept or they would lose in like five, a gentleman sweep, that their coach Jamal Mosley would be fired, and the speculation became after this series went seven that Jamal might get another year because he rallied the guys. And you see all the clips of Jamal Mosley in the locker room after all the wins. He rallied the guys and he said, just one more, just keep pushing, all the right stuff you want to hear. And it came out this morning that he indeed has been relieved of his duties. He's been fired as the head coach of the Orlando Magic, and the Orlando Magic will start a search for their next head coach. And I have a statement from Jamal Mosley here, who I haven't read yet, and this is from ESPN Shams Charania, relaying this message from Jamal Mosley. Um, he said, "It has been an incredible 5+ years, and this organization and this city will always mean so much to me and my family. In my heart, I truly hope that during our time here, we were able to impact the players, staff, and the Orlando Magic organization in a meaningful and lasting way. I want to sincerely thank the DeVos family for the extraordinary opportunity to serve as head coach of the Orlando Magic. To our fans, there is nothing but love in my heart. The joy I had coaching this team in this city for the people who live here is something that I will never forget. All all I ever wanted was to make you proud, to be Orlando Magic fans, and my journey here will certainly stay with me forever." That is former head coach Jamal Mosley on his time in Orlando. And yeah, I never had a problem with Jamal. I think he's put in a tough situation. When you have two guys who, by the numbers, can't really shoot, and Paulo and Franz, it's sort of hard to build a team around them. You bring in a shooter like Desmond Bain, who was supposed to solve the problem, sort of kind of did at times. I think this team as a whole, it needs a rework again. And that's so bad to say, but it needs a rework again. I said this in the beginning of the season, and I said this during the season when they were like tumbling down the standings. You have so much talent on this team, it's becoming a hindrance. You need to collect some of this talent and get a real player. You need to get like a franchise altering player in the sense of like somebody like, I'll say it this way, like an Alex Caruso, like a um OG Anunoby for the Knicks, like a Marcus Smart for the Lakers. You need to bring in somebody who's a real, I won't say an adult, but like a real like player that's been there, done that, been around for a long time, but is still a very valuable piece on the court. And that's going to be very hard to do because those players come at a premium now. And you might have to sacrifice a guy like Jalen Suggs to get it done. And um, I've never been particularly high on Jalen Suggs. I really like defensive guards, and he is exactly that. But buddy, your time might have ran out. You might have shit the bed, and you might not be here anymore. It might be over. But we'll talk about that more when the playoffs are done, and maybe we'll do a rundown of teams um, that need to make big changes. One last thing about this series and the Orlando Magic is that there's already rumors of who could be the next head coach, and one that popped up immediately on my timeline was Coach Tom Thibodeau, former coach of the New York Knicks, former coach of the um, Minnesota Timberwolves, former coach of the Chicago Bulls, and architect of the Boston Celtics championship defense way back in the day. That Tom Thibodeau. And I don't know how to feel about that. I have no thoughts about that. I just wanted to say it because I thought it was funny that he was the first name mentioned. If that happens, Paulo and Franz are not going to have long careers. That guy plays his stars hard, and he plays them like 40+ minutes every night. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, that's it. That's it for this series. Let's circle back one more time before we get out of here and talk about the Toronto Raptors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. There was no Brandon Ingram for Game 6. I repeat, I am talking about Game 6 here. The Toronto Raptors won this game 112 to the Cavaliers 110. Um, there was there was some very intriguing stuff, especially in this game, and they did it in Game 7 as well. We'll get to that, but the defense for this Raptors team, I was blown away. I was truly blown away because everybody was committed to it. Everybody looked amazing participating in the defense, especially when it was like Jamal Shed, Kobe Walters, Colin Murray Boyle, Scotty Barnes, and then like maybe like Sandru Mamu Kashafeli, Sandru. Um, really great stuff defensively. And I want to give a lot of credit to the coach, Darko Rajakovic, for running that kind of defense in the playoffs because, like, it's the first round. You don't want to show all your cards. But he understood in this series, if they wanted to advance, they had to run something new and they had to just pull out their ace. And they did. And they won this game six. We'll get to what happened in game seven. But Scotty Barnes also in this game was all over Allen. It was an eye opening game for me for Scotty Barnes because like you hear about Scotty Barnes and they didn't really have a lot of nationally televised games. So I didn't watch him a lot this season, and you hear like Scotty Barnes has improved. He's this, he's that, and he was everything he was advertised to be in these playoffs. In this first round, he had a moment where like he had a block on Allen, got the ball, went down the floor, and just dunked it. Like in all one motion, just bang down the floor, bang back, and then dunked it. And it was very Giannis-y. It was very Giannis Antetokounmpo like you know. And I was like, wow, okay, okay. Um, the Raptors looked like the better team overall in this game six. The Cavs just looked kind of lost, and I have some real damning notes here about the Cavs, and I still believe a lot of these thoughts that I have about this Cavs team. But the Raptors absolutely abused the Cavaliers three guard lineup. Um, there was plenty of time for the Cavs to make a comeback, but it just didn't happen. There were moments in this game where it's like, okay, they're at home. Some of these guys are going to hit shots they don't normally hit. Um, And then here's my first real damning thought about the about the Cavaliers, and it says here, I'm really heavily questioning what James Harden does in a championship slash playoff run. He hasn't done anything spectacular all series, can't even do the bare minimum and take some pressure off Mitchell. And as I was writing this, I was watching this game and I was really focusing on James Harden. And I said to myself, I said, James Harden is literally just saving Donovan Mitchell 5 dribbles every time the Cavaliers go up the floor, so Donovan isn't tired. That's literally all he's doing, and that's all he did in Game 7 as well. And you sort of look at that and you say, well, that's kind of what Donovan Mitchell needs. I sat up here and I said that's what Donovan needs, somebody to just bring the ball up and just do all that stuff and be healthy. One, because Darius Garland wasn't healthy in a lot of the playoff runs they had, so Donovan Mitchell had to do it all, bring the ball up, get into his spots, and that wears on you after a couple series. Um, I just found it so funny that you trade for a guy like James Harden, who's supposed to be like a a needle mover, and literally all he is like a glorified ball boy, just bringing up the ball. 5 dribbles. How many times you go up the floor? I don't even know how many times you go up a floor in an NBA game, but like, let's say like 1,000 times. So you do the math. 5 times 1,000. That saves Donovan Mitchell what? However many dribbles it was. Um, and it was disaster. I was just found myself laughing at it because I was like, man, this is what James Harden's been reduced to in the playoffs. You watch the guy in the regular season, like you're like, oh, this is a top five, point guard in the league, and then you watch him in the playoffs, and you're like, this is ugly. Um, Coming down the stretch at the end of the fourth quarter, Evan Mobley hits a huge three. And this was where my other question pops up is there was another disastrous end for the Cavs. James Harden at the center of it. No shot this time, but just an okay pass to Dean Wade. And I've shat on Dean Wade a lot, and I think I will continue to shit on Dean Wade a lot because Dean Wade's just out there doing cardio. The guy will hit 1 3 and then not hit another one the whole game. And like documented. Like he'll hit one three in the first quarter, and then maybe have like a layup or like another three throughout the course of 40 minutes of this game. The other 40 minutes of this game, it's horrendous for Dean Wade, and James Harden had to kick out to that guy, and mm, and try to win the game. um, Props to the Raptors again for their defense. They blew up the Cavaliers' final play to take the game to overtime. I have a note here that's actually really funny. I said, overtime, exclamation point, exclamation point. But they're ruining my watch of Houston versus the Lakers. And it kind of did ruin my watch of the Houston versus Lakers, but it really didn't. It was just being funny. Um, Shed almost fouls out in the overtime. RJ, the hometown hero, RJ Barrett, 24 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists in this game. Um, couldn't do anything except score. Like literally, he was just scoring. He was out there just scoring. He wasn't doing anything else, just scoring. And that was really impressive. Um, Cavs mess up another inbound play, game in the balance, and then as you can see here in was I guess the middle left, sort of here, right above, next to James Harden and Donovan Mitchell, R.J. Barrett hits a go ahead, um, not go ahead, but like a really up and down, all the way around the rim three, and wins the game for the Toronto Raptors. And we will talk about the stats here for the Cavaliers because it wasn't anything too impressive. Uh, Evan Mobley, 26. Evan Mobley's looked great this whole playoff run. I just want to make that very clear and make it very clear also that I'm a very big Evan Mobley fan. James Harden, 16 points, 9 assists, 9 rebounds, 4 turnovers. Donovan Mitchell, 24 points. Jared Allen, 14 points. And then Max Drew, 6 points. Dean Wade, 10 points. Um, yeah. Let's move on to game 7 because I'm running out of breath and this video is about to be an hour long. So I knew this video would be long anyway. Let's move on to game 7 for the Cavaliers versus Raptors. Um, where are the notes for this game? Oh, here we go. Saw it. There we go. I don't have a lot of notes for this game because even though the series is very entertaining, obviously a 7 game series is always going to be entertaining. This was Cavaliers' dominance at its finest, and this is probably the best version of the Cavs I've seen the whole first round. They won this game 114 to the Toronto Raptors 102, and I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I will go through some of my notes here, but the Cavs just opened it up. The youth of the Raptors came through in the first half of this game, and then the experience of the Cavaliers came through for them in the second half. And it was a tale of two halves. It was a really interesting first half. The Raps came up to a quick start, figuratively and literally. Like it was a quick start. They got up and got a lot of buckets, but they're also getting downhill, moving the basketball well, getting steals, moving down the floor even faster. It was incredible to watch. The ultra small ball for the Raptors was interesting for like a couple minutes, and then the Cavaliers started coming back and not backing down, and the Raptors had to get their real lineup back in. Um, Mitchell had an impressive spin, like a spin move, like on the floor, but the Raptors were still ahead. It did help though. Um, the young guys for the Raps were infectious with their energy and their heady plays. And then at half, it was tied. And then at halftime, a little bit after that, the game was over. Mitchell started the third quarter hot, didn't look back. The Raps started losing the game to Jared Allen, who had two back-to-back steals and two breakaway chances. He missed one, made another one. Max Strus did all the little things, like I had detailed. I think that was game 4 that he had started the first game, or game 5, where I was like, Max Strus isn't going to give you a lot, but he's been in these tight moments. He's had a lot of experience. He's going to get you those little plays that you need to win games, and that's what he did in this game 7 exactly, to the T almost. Um, Raps got it close after an avalanche by the Cavaliers, but the avalanche just kept going, and the Cavaliers didn't stop. Max Juice, at the very end of this game, when it was already over, finally hit a three, and finally did something besides the little things in this game for the Cavaliers. Um, Jared Allen, 22 points, uh, 19 rebounds. The first Cavalier since LeBron James to have 20 points and I believe 15 or 17 plus rebounds in a game seven. So congrats to Jared Allen. Evan Mobley, 13 points. Not a fairly impressive game at all. James Harden, 18 points, 6 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 turnovers. Basic James Harden game in the playoffs. What are you going to do? Donovan Mitchell didn't do anything particularly well field goal wise, but had 22. Did everything he could to will his team to win, and he did it. Dean Wade, 5 points. Max Strus, 12 points. Sam Merrill, 13 points. Both those guys off the bench, very important for this team. And the Cavaliers move on, defeating the Raptors 4-3. Took 7 games to do it, and now they move on to play the Detroit Pistons. Before we get to the second round stuff, very quickly, what's next for the Raptors? Um, I could I could see them taking a big swing. I really could. Should they? Mm, I think there needs to be some cap alleviation in the sense of like trading Emmanuel Quickly, who didn't play in the series at all. Uh, Maybe moving on from Jakob Poeltl, who Raptors fans are not happy with on a huge contract, and just getting stuff around the edges, clearing up the roster a little bit, and making room for guys like Jacoby Walters, like Jamal Shed, like CMB, Colin Murray Boyles, who's now my favorite Raptor. Those guys are really impactful, and I think you keep those guys together along with Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes, bring in some new sort of names and new players. I think you'll be okay. I could see them maybe going for Giannis. Maybe. I don't know why you would get Giannis when you have Scotty Barnes. No offense to Giannis, but Scotty Barnes is just younger and the upside's still there versus Giannis, who's now very injury prone and will probably take you over the hump. But I don't know if the roster construction will be in your favor if you do go get Giannis. You might be in a very similar situation to where the Bucks are right now, where you just have a bunch of kind of okay guys next to Giannis. And yeah, we'll see what happens with them. They're going to be another team that I want to watch this offseason and see what they do. I think I said that last offseason. They did jack squat, so we'll see. But a good season for the Raptors. I will conclude my thoughts with the Raptors with I knew they would have a good season from Jump Street. From the very moment I saw their final roster in preseason, I said this team is going to be very good. And personally, opposed to what the Atlanta Magic did and make me very upset and make me not very proud of choosing them, I was very proud to choose the Raptors this season to have a good season. And they did everything well. They almost did everything right. They fought their way through the regular season towards the end and stayed their head above water and got to play a team who could potentially be a Western and Eastern Conference Finals team in the Cavaliers. So hats off to the Raptors. And now we move on to the second round. And we will start in the East, obviously. Pistons versus Cavaliers on May 5th. That'll be an interesting series. I thought Raptors versus Pistons would be interesting, but I think Cavs have a bit more oomph to them, and they're going to give the Pistons a run for their money, especially with their big front court when the Pistons have no big front court at all. I mean, you're going to run Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren against Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. I don't know. This might be the end for the Pistons. We'll see. That is on May 5th at 7 on Peacock/NBC. And then right below them, the New York Knicks versus the 76ers, May 4th. That's today on NBC/Peacock at 8. This is going to be a bloodbath. Both these teams have really awkward games, and both of them have really great home court advantage. So it might be like whoever wins the first away. This sounds so stupid. Whoever wins the first away game is going to win this series probably. Or they could split it. Knicks win the first two at home. Sixers win the first two at home, and then they go back and forth and back and forth. We have another game 7. Cat versus Joel Embiid. Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe versus Jalen Brunson. Sign me up. Yeah, sign me up. Moving on to the other side of the bracket in the West, Timberwolves versus Spurs. Anthony Edwards, star for the Timberwolves, making great progress. Participated heavily in practice today after sustaining a knee injury in the last series. Potentially could play, and he would make this series a hell of a lot more interesting for sure. You also have Victor Wembanyama versus fellow countryman Rudy Gobert. Both are French. Both play on the French national team, so we'll see what happens there. Obviously, in this series, I would like it to be as long and as interesting as possible, but I think the Spurs have the edge. I think there will again be at least one more fight in this series, like an actual fight, like because the Timberwolves love to like do that stuff and mess with people's heads. Um, and then lastly, we talked about Thunder versus Lakers already. It's not gonna look good for the Lakers. I think as good as LeBron is, as mystical and as magical as he can be sometimes, it's the Thunder's time, and it's time. LeBron's time now as an old man versus a young team like this is not in the cards for them to win. So yeah, if there's one series I can say confidently who's gonna win, the Thunder are gonna beat the Lakers, and the Lakers are gonna be embarrassed, and they're gonna have all the excuses in the world because they don't have Luca, LeBron's 41, Austin Reeves is injured, yada yada yada, or coming off an injury, yada yada yada. Um, but yeah, that's it. That's my wrap up video. Again, I don't know if I said this earlier. I apologize that this was sort of like a wrap up video instead of talking about the game sixes before the game sevens. But here we are in the second round. Just wanted to have everything nice and neatly tied up for the first round, and now we can fully move on to the second round. And the video should be a lot more easier for me to produce and get out to you guys because there can only be so many games. There's only what is that? 8 teams left, so it should be easier for me. Like I said at the top, uh, NBA draft lottery coming up, WNBA regular season starting. You guys about to get a whole slew of videos and a whole lot of content from me, so stay tuned for that. The end screen should be playing right now. I did put out an NBA video about Natasha Cloud. Check that video out on the left. That situation is resolved, but still check it out. It'll really help. I really worked hard on that video, and I'm really proud of it. So check that one out. Check out the playlist on the right. You can check out my Road to the 2026 NBA Draft playlist, so you can know who's the top lottery picks in this draft for the draft lottery later this week. And if you hit my little icon in the middle of the screen, it will pop up with a subscribe button, and you can subscribe with these. We're at 16 subscribers now. First time in this channel's history that we've had subscribers in back-to-back weeks. So welcome both of you guys, or ladies, or whoever you are, and like and comment as well. And I will see you guys next time. Cheers.